Grandparents, my Bubi and Zaidi, Alav Shalom, they used to live in the house next door to me, like right next door. And my Zaidi was, he was an Orthodox guy, and he read the Torah, and he went to Lithuanian yeshivas, and I used to study with him, and I had that next door to me, and I spent an inordinate amount of time next door with my grandparents, and they spoke Yiddish, which is how I picked it up. But next door in our house, we were Canadian conservadox, so we weren't Orthodox, but we weren't American conservative either. Canadian conservative seems to lean decidedly right. So it was, and I went to Hebrew day school and all that stuff, and I would go to shul every Saturday, and we were kosher. I love it. I never had a problem with it. Even as I went to, even the high school that I went to, even it was in the Bathurst Manor in Canada, which was, I'm sure my high school was 90% Jewish, 5% Italian, and 5% just Gentile. And then when I went to Ryerson University in Toronto, I was one of the very few Jews, but I had no trouble mixing in. I was always comfortable with my Judaism. Never a problem. I embraced it. I dig it.
Did you ever wonder about who wrote the Torah?
Who wrote the Torah?
Yeah. Did
No.
you ever think about that?
Never.
You always took it for granted that
Always.
God gave it?
Always.
Really?
Always. Never gave it a second thought.
Really?
To this day. Nope. Nothing. Torah tziva lanu Moshe. Zot HaTorah asher sam Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael al pi yad Hashem. Yeah, I'm a believer, to quote Mickey Dolenz.
And you've always been a believer?
100%. Top to bottom. Now, that doesn't mean...
No, I'm not saying that you kept every mitzvah perfectly. That's a totally different question.
Right. But in terms of, the Ten Commandments, I've always done my best.
What about God? You always believed in God?
Always. Through the best times and the worst time of my life.
Do you know what it means to have a relationship with God, and have you ever had one?
I still have one, and I've always had one.
What does it mean?
A relationship with God is knowing that there is someone responsible for your history and for your being, and that He created the world, and He wrote the Torah, and He is entrusting me and you, and not just Jews, but all good people, with, being kind to each other, which is the basis of Tikkun Olam, of repairing the world. So yeah, I'm a diehard that way. I'm not, I don't wear a black hat. I don't have payas, and I got tons of friends who do, and that's great. But I believe as strongly as they do.
Wow. Do you believe that God intervenes in our lives?
Sure. Absolutely.
Do you feel like God has ever intervened in your life?
Yeah, definitely.
Could you give an example?
Sure. Give you a few examples. A couple quickies. My dad leaving us, like I say in the DVD in Kosher Not Kosher, my dad left us the day after my bar mitzvah. See, once I give you the setup, I have to give you the punchline. I'll never forget his advice. Today you were a man. See you, man. Yeah, my dark joke is I didn't put this on the DVD. My dark joke is he hung around long enough to fool the luncheon. That was it. So for example, with that, and he, even leading up to bar mitzvah, there were several years where it was beyond iffy. But you know what? It made me tougher. It made me closer to my brother. It made me look out for my mother more. It made me much closer to my grandparents, to my grandfather, and to my Bubi Alav Shalom. And it was, they were, like I say, my Zaidi was a Balkora. It was just, this is the way it is. This is what happened. Here's the proof. Here in the Torah is where it said it. This, and he knew it backwards and forwards. Literally, he knew it off by heart. It was, so, as such, it entrenched me much deeper into my Judaism, which I try to pass on to my kids or share with my friends, regardless of whether or not I'm asking them to accept it or not. I'm talking about my friends, not my kids. I want my kids to accept it, but it's very much a part of who I am. So there's number one. Number two, when my grandfather, who lived next door to us, when he passed away, I'd walk up the walk on Friday night, Erev Shabbos. I would go in to see him. This is after my grandmother had passed away. And I was very, very close with him. I named my first son, carries his first Hebrew name. My second son carries his second Hebrew name. And our daughter, also our son and daughter too. I just realized now I didn't say our for the first two, and my wife would go, hey. So our daughter carries my grandmother's Hebrew name. So when I was going up the walk, I heard a song that my grandfather used to, the first English song he ever learned when he came to Canada. And because he wasn't an Anglophone, he didn't speak English. And the first song he ever heard was, he used to always tell us, "Hab ich gehört, when I was single by money, when single I was single again." And he would say it in front of my boobie just to get her goat, you know. And she would say, "Sha, red nicht das, don't say that, you know." So, and that was the big joke. That was like a big joke in our family. And when I was coming up the walk on a Friday evening, very close to this time of year, in fact, it would have been like in very early March, I was coming up and I heard it in my head, like someone had headphones on me and turned it up to, up to 11, as they said in Spinal Tap, deafening. And at that moment, I knew it was my Zadie warning me, telling me that when you open the door, I'm not going to be there. And sure enough, I opened the door and he had passed on. But I expected it, so that shocking jolt wasn't there, but the immense sadness and panic was. And then lastly, on a happier note, I had moved here to LA. I wasn't here very long, a few months. And I had one cousin here, and he said to me, he goes, "Hey, listen, I'm going to go, there's a Friday night dinner. Do you want to go to an Erev Shabbos dinner? Do you want to go? It's in Encino." I never heard of Encino before. "I'm going to go, I'm not going to go, yeah, we won't go. We went back and forth, should we go, should we not go?" Anyway, we went, and there were Holocaust survivors who opened up their doors for just Jewish singles to meet, very casually, and they had, they made Kiddush and Motzi, they do, Erev Shabbos, and I met my wife that night, and my cousin who I went with met his wife that night, and from overlapping simchas, from overlapping weddings, two of our families, separate families, met. So you have 3 marriages and 8 kids and counting so far from that one night where, we both kind of said, do we, don't we, do we, don't we? And I'd like to consider that a grandparental divine intervention.
Do you talk to God, and does God ever talk back?
I do talk to God. When I daven, when I pray, I don't just say what's in the siddur in the prayer book. And I've been doing this since I was a kid, since I was little. I had fear of my grandparents dying. Yeah, I'd always talk to God directly. God was always made very available to me, both through my teaching at home, through my grandparents, and at school. So there was no mystery there. It was a given. So why not?
What kind of experience has davening been for you? Has it been exciting? Has it been boring? Has it been both?
I never found it boring. I think it's boring if you don't know what you're saying. But I know what I'm saying, and I mean what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. And every day I say it, I find something new in it that I didn't realize before. I never finish davening and say, big deal. It didn't do anything for me. It always reboots me.
Wow. Okay, I've got one tough theological question for you.
This is the place.
Why won't God heal amputees?
I'm stumped. Oh, amputee joke! Why won't God heal amputees? What makes you think he doesn't?
Well, we don't have any record of someone's limb growing back.
Well, if we go back, I'm not a rabbi. I know a little bit. I'm sure my rabbis have forgotten more than I'll ever know. Miriam was cured of leprosy when Moshe asked. Your question was, why won't God cure amputees?
Why won't God heal amputees? And I can let me explicate it.
Right.